Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunjaliha Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dadi Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dadi Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jamana Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dadi Gopi Jana Balabha Girivara Dadi Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivijagacharya Astuttara Satasri Srimadis Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're just beginning a really nice section. What isn't a nice section with Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan? But the prayers of Lord Brahma. We just started yesterday evening hearing the first verse, where Brahma is praising Krishna. He's asserting his longing to reach the association of Krishna or attain that intimate service of Krishna that the residents of Vrindavan have, and a very nice description of his form, what is seen by Brahma's eyes. Text 2. My dear Lord, neither I nor anyone else can estimate the potency of this transcendental body of yours, which has shown such mercy to me, and which appears just to fulfill the desires of your pure devotees. Although my mind is completely withdrawn from material affairs, I cannot understand your personal form. How then could I possibly understand the happiness you experience within yourself? Purport. This is the BBT purport by the followers of Srila Prabhupada. In Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, chapter 14, Srila Prabhupada explains that in the present verse, Lord Brahma expressed the following prayerful sentiment, quote, your appearance as a cowherd boy is for the benefit of the devotees, and although I have committed an offense at your lotus feet by stealing away your boys and calves, I understand that you have bestowed your mercy upon me. That is your transcendental quality. You are very affectionate toward your devotees. But in spite of your great affection for me, I cannot estimate the potency of your bodily activities. It is to be understood that when I, Lord Brahma, the Supreme Personality of this universe, cannot estimate the childlike body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then what to speak of others? And if I cannot estimate the spiritual potency of your childlike body, then what can I understand about your transcendental pastimes? Think of the Janma Karma Chame Divyam. And if Brahma can't, then what about us? Therefore, as it is said in Bhagavad Gita, anyone who can understand a little of the transcendental pastimes, appearance and disappearance of the Lord immediately becomes eligible to enter into the kingdom of God after quitting the material body. This statement is confirmed in the Vedas, where it is stated, simply by understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can overcome the chain of repeated birth and death. I therefore recommend that people should not to try to understand you by their speculative knowledge, which is the next verse, text 3, Jnane Prayasa Udapasya. When Brahma disrespected the supreme status of the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, first bewildered him by exhibiting the Lord's own transcendental power. Then, having humbled his devotee, Brahma, Krishna gave him his personal audience. That is, he withdrew all of that and just stood before him in his original form. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Lord Krishna's transcendental body can also function through the agency of his plenary expansions called Vishnu Tattva. This is stated by Brahma himself in the Brahma Samhita 5.32, Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti. This verse indicates not only that the Lord can perform any bodily function with any of his limbs, but also that he can see through the eyes of his Vishnu expansions, or, indeed, through the eyes of any living entity. And, similarly, that he can hear through the ears of any Vishnu, or Jiva expansion. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that although the Lord can perform any function with any one of his senses, in his transcendental pastimes as Sri Krishna, he generally sees with his eyes, touches with his hands, hears with his ears, and so on. Thus he behaves like the most beautiful and charming young cowherd boy. And the final paragraph from the BBT. The Vedic knowledge expands from Lord Brahma, who is described in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam as Adi Kavi, the primeval Vedic scholar. Yet, Brahma could not understand the transcendental body of Lord Krishna because it is beyond the reach of ordinary Vedic knowledge, which is an interesting statement. I'll read it again. Although Brahma is Adi Kavi, the primeval Vedic scholar, Brahma could not understand the transcendental body of Lord Krishna because it is beyond the reach of ordinary Vedic knowledge. Among all the transcendental forms of the Lord, the two-armed form of Govinda, or Krishna, is original and supreme. Thus, Lord Govinda's pastimes of stealing butter, drinking the gopi's breast milk, tending the calves, playing his flute, and playing childhood sports are extraordinary, even in comparison with the activities of Lord Vishnu's expansions. And we'll read just one commentary, Vishwanath Chakravarti. He writes, Krishna's objection. Hear me, Lord Brahma. You're the master of all powers in this universe, while I am but the son of a forest cowherd man. You are an ancient figure, but I am a small boy. You are knowledgeable of all the Vedas and endowed with the highest conduct, whereas a keeper of cows am ignorant. I, as a keeper of cows, am ignorant without knowledge of proper conduct, so that I even run around with some yogurt in my hand. You are the Supreme Lord, controller of all illusion, full of bliss, whereas I am bewildered by your illusion and wander about in the forest in grief for lost calves. Thus I am not qualified for your praise. Unquote. Fearing such objections from Krishna, Brahma began to speak, revealing his repentance for committing offense to Krishna out of ignorance. Quote, I cannot understand, avasitum, the greatness of your body, which appears foolish, engaged in childish play, what to speak of your pastimes of Kaishora age. If, because he hasn't turned 6 yet, Kaishora age begins then. If I cannot understand the greatness of your body, what to speak of the extent of happiness that you experience in your mind by herding the calves? If I cannot comprehend the happiness that your cowherd friends experience, then what to say of the happiness that you experience directly? If one who is controlled in mind cannot understand that happiness, what to say of those with uncontrolled minds? Paragraph. In this way, 5 levels of ignorance have been expressed. Brahma describes Krishna's body in this way to indicate that he cannot understand him by study of scripture, austerity, or yoga. He is understood only by mercy. Quote, "Your greatness is shown through your mercy to me, who have committed an offense to you. That mercy consists of showing me your sweet form, after showing your forms of great power, the 4-handed Vishnu forms. What is the cause of mercy? Your body is sva ichamaya, responding to the desires of the devotees who desire to see or serve you. Because of your affection for your devotees, you show mercy. Although I am an offender, because I have a semblance of devotion, I have attained qualification for a drop of mercy," unquote. Krishna objects. But to fulfill desires and show mercy are traits of human beings also. Brahma. But your body is not material. Bhuta Maya. Your body is spiritual. The Brahma Samhita says that Krishna's senses can perform the functions of all other senses. When any of the Lord's limbs or his parts, meaning his expansions, appears in the material world as an avatar, then it assumes all the functions of all the senses. If the Lord's hand appears in the world, it takes a form with all senses. Govinda, however, still sees with his eyes and hears with his ears and thinks with his mind. He does not see with his hands. Final paragraph. You have shown me the forms of Vasudeva, or Deva Vapu, who previously was merciful to me by teaching the 4 verses of Bhagavatam, Mad Anugrahasya. Your body, for the purpose of fulfilling your desires, Ichamaya, is the source of these Vasudeva forms, Sva. Though your body fulfills your desires, it is not like our bodies, Bhutamaya, but it is spiritual, Ichamaya. The greatness of this body, even I cannot understand. Though I have revealed the Vedas and studied the fruits of the Vedas Bhagavatam, I cannot even understand the greatness of your Vasudeva forms, when to speak of the greatness of the source of those forms, Sakshat Tava, with human shape. What is the greatness of that human form? In this form, Krishna realizes his true happiness, which is rare even in other avatar forms. Through pastimes such as stealing yogurt, drinking the gopis' breast milk, herding the cows, and acting tea, unquote. So let's remember this little paragraph we just read, because it's going to puzzle us as we go along. This Lord Brahma, he had the 4 verses of the Bhagavatam revealed to him. He spoke Brahma Samhita, which is a prayer to Govinda. And here he's becoming bewildered by, or unable to understand the body of Krishna. The body of Krishna is manifest to fulfill his desires, Ichamaya, and his desire is to stimulate and nourish the ecstasies of his devotees, and so that's what he does. This is by direct association with Krishna, as this has been arranged, seeing the power or the mightiness or the majesty or the opulence side by side with his then the original form, and then all of that is resting in his original form. That's very special. So should we understand, I'm anticipating the questions, should we understand that Brahma really didn't get it until he saw Krishna? I mean, he understood, but he didn't really understand. And it's something like the prayers of Akrura, or the reflections of Akrura as he's riding in the chariot to go from Mathura to Braja. And that is, he has heard about Krishna, he has deep, profound understanding of Krishna, he has yet to see him. The features of Krishna are within his mind, he describes them in his meditation, and he's anticipating seeing Krishna. So it's instructive for us as sadhakas to understand what the mature stage is through this expression of Lord Brahma. We can think of Lord Brahma's not knowing how, in different ways. But the way that inspires me particularly, and it seems to be the message that the Bhagavatam wants us to understand, is seeing the form of Krishna is this very special mercy of Krishna. It happens by his mercy. Brahma's getting his special mercy. It's said specifically, not only he showed his majesty, which was his curiosity item, Krishna reciprocated, but beyond that, he showed him his original form and gave him an understanding through the whole pastime that within that original form is everything, although he looks like a little boy and conducts himself like a little boy, playful, this and that, naughty, this and that, seeing with his eyes, although he doesn't need to do that. He's appearing as if he's one of us, which can bewilder the atheist or the one whose faith is weak. So Brahma is understanding these things about Krishna that the residents of Vrindavan don't have that understanding about Krishna. They don't see him as Brahma sees him. They don't see him as Narada sees him, or as Akrura sees him, or as Uddhava sees him. They see him the way they see him. thus most exalted. I mean, that the exaltedness of Yasoda, I like this statement, is that she didn't understand. One can say the exaltedness of Brahma is he understands. More exalted is the exaltedness of Mother Yasoda, who doesn't understand. While knowledge is revered, more revered than knowledge is the sweetness aspect. So he's experiencing that sweetness aspect directly, and that's how I understand this apparent bewilderment and apparent this and that. He does understand because of the Ichamaya, that is, he's fulfilling the desires of Brahma, but Brahma doesn't have the qualification to experience Krishna the way the residents of Braja experience Krishna. So he's hankering, aspiring for, yearning for that kind of qualification. Because he knows, although he's this big man in the universe, Krishna is more attracted to the cowherd boys, or the cowherd boys are more exalted than Brahma. By worldly estimation, not so. By spiritual estimation, definitely so. It's connected with the what Brahma is not able to understand in the whole thing, the whole pastime of becoming bewildered, etc., is to nourish Brahma's hankering for that kind of love that the residents of Braja have. And that's to teach us also. Because as sadhakas, we're enjoined to understand the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities. So that means knowledge or cognizance or, understanding these details. And part of that understanding of the detail is like Brahma, or like these other names mentioned, Uddhava, Narada, and Akrura. How exalted are the residents of Braja that we cannot understand. I mean, we can theoretically understand, but we can't understand experientially because of the particular kind of love that they have, we don't have. So we can't experience what they're experiencing. We can theoretically understand how exalted are they. Brahma is receiving mercy from Krishna to understand what he's understood. The mercy received by the residents of Vrindavan is greater than the mercy that Brahma has received. Because that mercy is nourishing that higher love that they have, such so that it's the two things, their love for him and his reciprocation with their love for him. He reciprocates with his devotees. Brahma has a certain regard, and he's reciprocating with that regard perfectly. He's a devotee. He's an exalted devotee. And he's realizing that he can't understand because of the limits of his love. And we're from Lord Brahma's sampradaya. And we're to follow Lord Brahma. And in addition, within Lord Brahma's sampradaya is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's teaching us yet another stage of sadhana bhakti, Raganuga sadhana bhakti, recognizing the even greater exalted nature of those who don't know. And we can know about those that don't know. And the exaltedness. They don't. It's not simply that they're uneducated. Simple village people, they haven't had good education. It's not like that. They have knowledge of Vedic culture. They use it. They perform it in the appropriate time and circumstance. But what they don't know is this power, majesty, etc. of Krishna, although he shows it. There's a kind of tension or a mystery, etc. But Brahma's prayers take us into a plunge into that mystery, and there's a lot of commentary. It's going to take a long time to go through this chapter. Let's see if there's some discussion. It's underneath your computer. Oh, you got an extra one.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maybe you already answered to my question, but I think I did not get it. So the relation, Brahma's bewilderment or not understanding Krishna's aspect, sweetness aspect, is that, because we understand that Brahma understands from the Brahma Samhita prayers that a lot of details he has given.
Yes.
So, is the, what is that understanding that, that Brahma doesn't know about Krishna?
He's not in the experiential. You can drill on it, and it probably you just have to meditate on it rather than drill on it. And that is, he's got the full picture of the majesty of Krishna. What he doesn't have is the experience that the residents of Vrindavan have, because he has this all-knowing capacity, or full knowledge of the Vedas capacity. So he knows theoretically, but not experientially. So he's saying specifically, I don't know the extent of your power, because he's already shown there is no extent to his power, and nor do I know the happiness that you're experiencing. Of course, you don't know the happiness that another is experiencing. Even Krishna doesn't know the happiness that that Radharani is experiencing, although he's all-knowing. So it's experiential. You ponder on it. It's good to wanting to know the answer to that question, but it may not be by parsing, over here is this and over there is that, and that's where the line goes between this and that. It's profound, and my understanding, I did my best to explain.
In relation to that Janma Karma Chame Divyam verse, one who understands, the appearance and activities, what is that understanding that we need to have to get out of this?
The transcendental nature of that's a big topic. It's in this box over there, and you sort through this box that's over there. You got it. The bell rings. You're going back to Godhead. It's not quite like that. One of the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities we touched on in this reading this morning. And that is, although Krishna is the source of everything, he appears like a small child. Although Krishna is the source of everything, he appears as a small child. And he experiences things as if he's a small child. Here's another. It's another way of kind of saying the same thing. Within Krishna, there's unlimited and limited. Or He's all pervasive, like the Damodar Leela. He's all pervasive, and he has a small form. Within Krishna, there's not only unlimited potencies, but even specifically contradictory potencies simultaneously existing within him. It's not like over here this and over there that, but simultaneously this and that are contradictory. There's a nice chapter, Canto 10, Chapter 9, Text 13, 14. Look at it. And that's a place where this is also discussed. What I just said is elaborated upon there in the commentaries, or 8.3.8 Bhagavatam. There's a long section in Bhagavad Sandarbha where Jiva Goswami has a lot of fun explaining the contradictions that are within Krishna, or the source of everything. He's this and he's not this. He's that and he's not that. He's the other thing and he's not the other thing. And the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Rig Veda, and the Puranas are filled with those contradictory statements. And that's part of understanding the transcendental nature of. That doesn't come by jnana prayasa. They come by namanta eva. That's the next verse. Jnane prayasa udapasya namanta eva. No problem. The inquisitive spirit should not be thrown away. The endeavor to understand should be through this descending method and by hearing from authority. Then, the discerning capacity of the intellect is not going to do it. Endlessly one can go on with the discerning capacity. It doesn't mean we toss the discerning capacity away. We just recognize it has its limits. So we use the intellect to describe, we use the mind to meditate, and by then we can understand the limitations of intellect and mind. So on the other hand, if it's meant to nourish bhakti, that inquisitive spirit is meant to nourish bhakti, and as we hear, then it can stimulate the purity and the revelation of Krishna, because it's dependent upon revelation. So Brahma is saying, although you've given me mercy with this, I don't have the same mercy as the resident of Vrindavan that. And he's recognizing it, but that's his position. The same idea is expressed when both Narada Muni and Uddhava are meeting with Gopakumar before he goes to Dwaraka, then Krishna, then Vaikuntha, Vrindavan. They say to one another, we don't have the qualification that he does. They have knowledge. They have the discerning capacity to know the difference between this and that, but they don't have that same quality of love. And therefore, they're not eligible to enter into Krishna's pastimes as Gopakumar is, because he has a natural affinity. So how do you get a natural affinity if you don't have it? Well, you follow the path given by Lord Chaitanya and Rupa Goswami. You become a Rupanuga. And then it's there, it awakens by that method. So not by the jnane prayasa method. Inquisitive spirit, yes. Not by that path.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have actually the same question as Lingaraj Prabhu is asking. I was thinking about Kunti Maharani and here Lord Brahma's description. It looks like they understood, but they have not completely. Thank you for that explanation. It's really helpful. The other thing you mentioned about Lord Brahma describing it's only by Krishna's causeless mercy that he is able to understand. Somehow, I was having this meditation, Guru Maharaj, from Govardhan pastime. My thoughts and meditation were on Indra receiving Krishna's mercy even without being asked for. He was not like praying for or asking or desperate for his mercy, but Krishna is like so loving and so protective. So the whole narrative of Putana Lila enhanced that meditation. And I'm just appreciating here Lord Brahma is, that's
Emphasizing the same point.
yeah, it's very beautiful and just drawing the heart to Krishna's causeless mercy. Just want to understand a little bit on that. If we see these three cases, Guru Maharaj,
If you see what?
these three instances for Indra, Putana, and Brahma, I mean, they may be in different kind of circumstances.
Yes.
But do they also have intrinsically that eagerness to receive Krishna's mercy which attracted, or it's totally causeless?
Totally thoughtless,
Causeless.
causeless. What Brahma received, what each of them, each of those three, what they received is not identical. Let's say Brahma's receiving, I'm limited. Later in his prayers, like Uddhava, I'm at this position. Maybe in my next life I can take birth somewhere in Vrindavan and receive the mercy of the Brijvasis by the dust from their feet, any one of them. That's his conclusion. The conclusion of Indra is not the same. And the conclusion of Puta is not exactly the same. A detail that makes sense to me, I forget which one of the acharyas, I think it's Rupa Goswami, but I'm not sure. My memory doesn't go there. Yes, she achieved, because it says like a nurse, but not the same, because it gives names of two of the nurses. She had this veneration mood, not a Vatsalyarasa mood. She was assistant of those, but she didn't have that same, like a nurse, but not a nurse, not a full, so she didn't achieve the same thing. She achieved great mercy. So then, the question of what's the prompt for her to get what she got, there's like lots of ideas about what prompted Krishna to give to Putana what she received. And there's two answers, depending upon who is speaking, which commentator is speaking. It has something to do with her previous life, and the main factor is causeless mercy. So that's your question. Is there cause or causeless? It's just causeless mercy. He's just being kind. If it's causeless mercy, then it would stand to reason. Everybody would get the same thing because it's causeless mercy. But not everyone gets the same thing. Even just Brahma, Indra, and Putana didn't get the same thing. So if it's causeless mercy, then it has certainly something to do with the receptivity. So the receptivity is going to assimilate Krishna's causeless mercy differently. because his mercy is causeless mercy. It's not caused mercy over here and causeless over there. It's causeless mercy because he's merciful. And he's reciprocating precisely according to the aspiration or the hankering or the position of his devotee. Indra is his devotee, Brahma is his devotee, Putin is a quasi-devotee, not really a devotee, an enemy. Anyway. I recommend don't same response. Don't just drill on it by contemplation. This is the same topic that you've been asking about repeatedly. It's good to have an inquisitive spirit, and the real position of understanding will come just from hearing and a heart that's soft and bhakti filled. And then it's going to touch the heart differently for different persons. That's also a scriptural statement. It's not, this one's right, and if this one's right, then that one's wrong because it's not this one. Either of you two, something? Yes.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Just as Brahma is bewildered by Krishna's, I'm actually finding some confusion and bewilderment for this material world. We've been reading, or over the weekend, we read in Srimad Bhagavatam in one of the purports, and Prabhupada mentions this quite often, that everything is happening according to the will of the Lord. And we also have these modes of material nature that are controlling us. And recently we're reading in Srimad Bhagavatam, the 10th chapter and 2nd canto, where it's talking about how there is, for every senses, there is a controlling deity.
Yes.
So I feel like there's just so much control.
Yes, there is. There is. We're controlled. You bet.
So then I feel like this, where's
the love?
Free will? No, this. So I have this free will, but when I try to exercise it, I feel like it's so tiny.
It is tiny. But it's there.
But
the control is exercised for the rebellious. The control is exercised according to one's past involvement in matter, both guna and karma, and so that's the fruit or the product of past free will choices, and then ongoing free will choices. That you have free will doesn't mean, okay, I'm going to do a U-turn. We're responsible for our past free will choices, and there's no escape. Our free will is tiny, but we can charter our course toward Krishna as a free will choice, and Krishna will recognize that and reciprocate with that. Controlled and controlled and controlled in the conditioned state. And now what about becoming free from that control? Gosh, listening to Prabhupada speaking Bhagavad Gita, every single class, he is speaking the human form of life is a special opportunity to overcome that. So it's a free will choice. It requires mercy to have the process and proper knowledge. But even if one has the process and proper knowledge, one isn't necessarily going to go down that path, and it's a free will choice. So there's mercy and effort at the same time. And Krishna sees the effort, and he'll guide that effort as long as it's, continued to be under proper direction, and it'll take us to him beyond that kind of control. Now, what about in the spiritual world? We're also controlled. And we don't whine and complain about his control. We just, difficult things happen and so forth and so on, but there's the sense of the Krishna connection always. And he's there. And if we don't want, then Krishna controls in a different way, through the agency of Maya. We're controlled. We're servants. Don't rebel against that fact. You'll be in trouble. But there is free will. You can choose by free will, not by snapping your fingers, but moving down the path of being under the control or under the care, under the shelter of the internal potency. But we're always controlled, even in the liberated state. Different kind of control, the internal potency control, lovingly controlled, evidently lovingly controlled. Control doesn't mean free will is absent.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with. I feel like I'm like a little child thrown in this boxing match to fight with a world champion. And it just seems like there's no way.
There is. Serve. We're meant for service. So serve this way, serve that way, serve the other way, but we're meant for service. And by free will, we can choose to be Krishna's servant, or by free will, we can choose to serve something else. But it's our constitutional makeup we're part of the whole. We're meant for service. Mm-hmm. It's who we are. Is there freedom in that? Yes. Unlimited freedom? No. Can we do something to become unlimitedly free? No. And you can cry about it, but it doesn't change the reality. We're servants. So we are. We know the example Prabhupada gives, the finger is meant to serve the body. There's a function of the part to the whole. That's our function, serving the whole, serving Krishna. So why don't serve Krishna? Okay, serve something else, because you're a servant. You give you this service. No, I don't like that service. Okay, here's another one. Okay, I don't like that service. Okay, here's another one. But your options are restricted by guna and karma. With higher karma and higher guna, the options are further. It's like a visual for me. There's a cow that has a rope. I mean, that we don't do that here in the West, but in India, the cow is taken out in the morning, and there's a rope. And then the length of the rope can be this or that, but they can only go as far as the rope will allow them to go. Because the other end has got a stake in the ground. They can try to pull the stake out, but there's a boundary to their freedom. And it can be greater or lesser, depending upon the length of the rope. So the more one lives in goodness, the more freedom, but there's a rope. And then what about when there's no rope? Huh? Like just grazing in the pasture. Well, then the pasture has its fence. There's boundaries to our freedom with the internal potency. We're controlled. We're meant to be controlled. It's who we are. We're meant to serve. And there's a master. Don't rebel against the master, that position of being the servant of the master. There's free will here and there. More confined or less confined, under this shelter or under that shelter.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I don't even know if this is a bona fide question, really.
Keep going, keep going.
I find the simplicity of relation that I had maybe with Mahaprabhu and Krishna, where it's just I just talk to you, I go to you for everything and not think about anything else, seems to be kind of getting lost in my endeavor for Janma Karma Chame Divyam, be it, or endeavor to qualify myself to maybe preach to a certain extent. And, as I'm reading the Bhagavatam and everything else, I seem to be lost in, okay, I need to remember this, that, how does that link to? How do I balance,
I have two thoughts to share on that topic. One of them is the methodology or the model of learning of spiritual is different than material. They both involve hearing. But the success of your spiritual life is not, do you have the memory capacity and intellectual discerning capacity? How does this puzzle piece fit together with that puzzle piece? And that's not the standard, because there may be academic people that have that, and the bell doesn't ring. They don't achieve Krishna Prema. So what's different? What's different about the model? The model is just hearing with the simple heart. How wonderful is my Krishna? And when that hearing hits the simple heart, then the understanding, the deeper understanding, the deeper realization and experience of how wonderful is Krishna is palpable. It's a different model or process of understanding. It's not an ascending process, it's a descending process. And a second response, similar but different, and that is, I came across this word in our in the Putana pastime of innocence. An elevated Vaishnava, which we aren't, but an elevated Vaishnava has these contrasting, apparently contrasting capacities. Vast wisdom and childlike innocence. Krishna's there, and one doesn't feel proud or, I'm an empowered person, the doership and ego sensibility. The humility and innocence is there simultaneously. So that's the pure heart. And we're not there. And it's not totally disconnected from the other, the model of learning. It's by sound. a teacher to student, or, disciplic succession to us. And we're, being held by the hand, metaphorically, through the ear. Our ear is carrying us, if we hear properly, with the inquisitive spirit. I want to know. I want to understand. I want to, like this from Brahma, I want to attain Krishna. I don't have the qualification. I can't understand you, except by mercy. So that's the innocence. It's a different model. That's back to the first example. And so how do you equip yourself? Well, we still have to function in the world. We have to do stuff like, all this equipment. He's got to learn all this technology of how to make all this stuff work. And it's not, so it's, we et cetera. We have our careers, and we have our, you got to pay your taxes, and you got to do stuff. So you have to use that faculty, and at the same time doing that stuff, how to progress spiritually. So it's going to be different for different persons, because we have different guna and karma, different psychophysical natures, and we work with it. Stane, statak, that's this verse 3 in this series. It's right after verse 2, which is what we're reading. But he's established the goal. In text 3, he's going to go further with, this is the goal and the means to achieve it. And the emphasis on hearing and abandoning speculation to understand. So we're trained up with speculation. That's how we got trained up since we're little. That's the academic paradigm. And we get rewarded for it. And here we are, trying to. I was just this morning listening to Prabhupada speaking in Melbourne, where somebody was asking, why is it that so many of your followers are young? And Prabhupada said a funny thing, there's old fools. It's hard to have an old fool understand. And he said, young, the age for education is young. And therefore, then the third was, Prahlad is Komara Acharat Pragyo, from 6 to 10. That's the best time, because the mind is fresh. So, we've it's not just this one lifetime. How old are you, and how long have you been through that? And here we are with all of those tools, well trained, because, accomplished. We know how to do it. We've demonstrated we know how to do it. And then to take those tools, it's different. It's not easy to make that adjustment. But that doesn't change the principle and the process. It's the hearing process. Stane statakshruti gatam tanavan manobhir. Go ahead and look at that verse, and we'll just probably spend days talking about that verse. The commentary is going to be vast, because it's so important, the verse, in the whole of the bhakti process. Because your question is like that. There's the simplicity, and then what may look like complexity of information, and how does this puzzle piece fit together with that puzzle piece? It's a big mystery. Oh gosh, I don't, my brain is puzzled. Prabhupada said that about hearing from his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta. I would sit and listen, and my brain was puzzled. But I had faith. that it has a potency to carry me to the spiritual position. So like that, that's the simplicity or the innocence of heart, and the method of going forward. So we have a seed by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, like you began, and we're very grateful. And our acharyas to write all these massive, complicated, deep, intricate, mind-boggling commentaries. They start with offering their respects to Lord Chaitanya, who gave them that capacity to understand all these things and share these things. Now, if you don't understand all those things, it's not, you can't go back to Godhead. It's just receive mercy. And how wonderful is my Krishna? I'm puzzled by him. May I get that special position that I can be in the association of the Brijbasis. That's the further stage. You know, we're not there. But when it gets there, then you get that association. And it just takes some time for it to mature by the hearing process, faithful hearing. It works. There's magic in that sound vibration. And it's not going to be like, taking an exam at, chemistry 101 or 201. It's not going to be like that. Not a match. It's a different process. We have some online questions, I bet. And it's already 8:35. I think I'll take a couple of online questions, and then we'll postpone the rest till this evening.
So the first question is from Amara Mataji. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, when Krishna presents us with multiple options to choose from in this material world to fulfill some responsibilities, and no option is of our choice or liking, then how can we seek peace with choosing an option that will please Krishna?
Guru Sadhu Shastra. And it's not like this one's pleasing and that one's not pleasing. But you'll be guided by Guru Sadhu Shastra. And when that sincerity of heart is there, Krishna will provide intelligence to make a choice that's pleasing to him, because that's what you want.
And this question is from Radhika, 9-year-old daughter of Kirti Prabhu.
Okay.
It came right after Govinda Mohini Mataji's question. Is there school and homework in Goloka? I guess control.
I'll tell you what. When I get there, I'll send you back a text message.
So
there are teachers and there are students. So when there's teachers and there's students, there's usually some homework.
There are two questions from Uttama Bhakta Prabhu. Is Uddhava a Jnana Mishra Bhakta? He is the most elevated outside Vrindavan. How does Srila Rupa Goswami's pure bhakti definition from Nectar of Devotion apply to him?
He's not a Jnana Mishra Bhakta. He's a Shuddha Bhakta. And Shuddha Bhaktas can be in different categories. They can have full understanding of Krishna's opulence or not. It's not that those that do, they're Jnana Mishra Bhaktas. They're Shuddha Bhaktas. That their bhakti is of this nature as opposed to that nature.
So Prabhu just said that I always thought Jnani means who has a tendency for ascending approach.
Yes, that's correct.
The next question from Uttama Bhakta Prabhu is, when Putana or similar cases get liberated,
What is the function of free will which Lord Krishna values immensely? Does it mean Lord's mercy takes precedence?
No, Putana had a desire, very slight, but she had a desire, and Krishna fulfilled that desire and cleansed her of the other. So free will was operating. Go ahead.
2 questions from Sandhya Mataji. I was wondering if I was wondering if it is right for us to guess that we know Krishna better through Bhagavatam than Lord Brahma knows him through the Vedas.
How is that? Brahma is speaking in the Bhagavatam.
Next question is, Narada says to Vyasadev that he can see in trance Krishna's pastimes and then compose the Bhagavatam. Similarly, is Lord Brahma able to see Krishna's pastimes too?
Yes. Seeing Krishna's pastimes in samadhi is also made possible by mercy. Say it negatively. Without Krishna's mercy, you cannot. Say it positively. With Krishna's mercy, you can, along with qualification. Then you can. That's it. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.